far as $200 billion, I think that number could move. Obviously, it takes money to kill bad guys. So we're going back to Congress and our folks there to ensure that we're properly funded for what's been done, for what we may have to do in the future.
I will not vote for a war supplemental. No, I am a no. I've already told leadership I am a no on any war supplementals. I am so tired of spending money elsewhere.
For once, in response to something Lauren Boebert is saying, I can say same. Really sick of it. Really sick of how fast massive mountains of money go out the door when it comes to bombing people in the Middle East. And you saw the prediction there by Pete Hegseth that these super casual, $200 billion, yeah, that number can move for whatever. And I bet that it will. I have a feeling it will definitely move up and up and up and up every single month for years until we've spent a couple of $1 trillion. Once again, set fire to the money necessary to rebuild America, set fire to our collective futures. But that said, Cenk, you have Lauren Boebert already saying that she's a no. You have other Republicans indicating that they might be no's. Do you think that the Republicans are going to follow suit with Lauren Boebert, or do you think Trump is just inevitably going to get whatever he asks for?
Yeah, so in this story, we're going to give you some context. Like, for example, how much did the Iraq war cost per year versus this 200 billion. We're gonna give you the comments of some of the politicians so you get a better sense of which way it's going. But most importantly, I'm gonna answer John's question about the theater of politics, right? So there's what they say and there's what they mean and what's actually going to happen. So let John give you the facts, then we'll come back and interpret the play, if you will.
Yeah, think if you're implying that Lauren Boebert can't be taken on her word, I'm not gonna sit here and listen to that, Cenk. But anyway, yeah.
So John, the funny thing is, before you go on, yeah, I hear you, but actually Boebert's not the issue here, right? And the reality is that the people that we thought were huge liars are liars in a different direction. The people who everybody thinks are not liars are actually the main liars. But we'll explain all that, so go ahead.
Okay, we'll jump into that. But let's talk about money. Let's talk about what the war in Iran has already cost, or what at least they're telling us it's cost over just the first 3 weeks. Now they say, according to Kevin Hassett, the guy who said that the damage this war is doing to your family's economics is the last thing on his mind. He said that the first week of the war cost $12 billion. So assuming that it hasn't ramped up, which we keep being told by Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth that they're bombing more and more and more than ever before, bigger than anyone's seen. So one would presume to think that it is more expensive per week. That sounds like $30 to $40 billion already. We don't know for sure. And that already is enough, conservatively, enough money to have totally covered the health care of 1.3 million Americans. You could throw out a lot of things like that. Gavin Newsom recently said the $200 billion they're asking for could double the annual per person spending on K through 12 education, actually investing in the future of America, expanding the ACA tax credit for a further 7 years, provide up to 2 million people the SNAP benefits they need, provide a middle-class tax break of $3,500. And that's not like replacing our military budget, which is already gargantuan. That's just the extra money that they've conjured up that they need right now and will blow through in a matter of just a couple of months. And we're already hurting from what this war has already done. So we're paying more for everything we buy. Now our tax dollars are also going to be wasted at the same time. It seems absurd, and that's not just me saying it. We're going to give you a little bit more of what Congresswoman Boebert had to say about it.
I will not vote for a war supplemental. No, I am a no. I've already told leadership I am a no on any war supplementals. I am so tired of spending money elsewhere. I am tired of the industrial war complex getting all of our hard-earned tax dollars. I have folks in Colorado who can't afford to live. We need America First policies right now, and that I'm not doing that. We need the Save America Act, FISA with warrants. There's a lot of hard lines that I have right now, and we've got to get our act together if we want to keep this majority. And the path that we're going doesn't look very promising.
Should the administration get out of Iran?
That's up to the president.
Well, I mean, Actually, Congress is supposed to have a pretty significant role in determining that sort of thing. Could somebody mail her the Constitution? I like the first thing she was saying, but totally abdicating all of her responsibility to have any influence whatsoever on her foreign policy is a strange follow-up to that. But in any event, she does say there's other stuff we need. We need to suppress, the vote and all that. And so maybe that's the out. Maybe I'll give you the $200 billion if we successfully strip the right to vote from a bunch of people, make it more expensive. I don't know what else she might want. I'm assuming something that stops money being spent on trans healthcare or something. There's all sorts of extra things that they could say they want in exchange for this. But that's Lauren Boebert. We could jump into one or two of the others who are sounding off on this. We have Chip Roy expressing his at least moderate reservations.
I like to be consistent. I was consistent about Ukraine. I'm going to be consistent about Iran. I want to make sure I know the game plan because we want to know what the result is going to be. I trust the president and trust Pete Hegseth, trust our national security guys to make sure they're defending our interests. But the American people don't want to be involved and embroiled in a long-term war. $200 billion is a lot of money. Yeah. He needs to come tell us, is this to replace munitions, rebuild our stockpile? Or are we talking about a long-term engagement? We need to know before we can go bless and write a blank check. But we very much support the president defending our interests. He's doing a great job.
I don't know what that last bit was about in terms of supporting our interests, but yeah, no, it's very reasonable that Chip Roy would want the president to answer questions like that. Unfortunately, he appears to have just woken up from a coma because neither Donald Trump nor Pete Hegseth feels that they owe any answers to any American, not to the media, not to their constituents, not to representatives. They don't care about Chip Roy. They don't care about the House. They don't care about the Senate. They will do whatever they want to do, in large part because they know that there's a good chance that they will get whatever they ask for. And so all of those are reasonable concerns.
Don't forget, Noble Mobile saving you a ton of money. So a lot of people are signing up now and beginning to realize, what the hell, why am I paying so much to Verizon and AT&T? So your bill's only $50 a month, but it can actually be less because they give you money back if you don't use your data. So if you're paying more than $50, there's no reason to not switch. It's crazy not to switch because same phone, same number, same contacts, literally nothing changes. TYT.com/switch, TYT.com/switch. All right, we'll be right back.
Cenk, we have others. We have Murkowski, we have Thomas Massey, but you feel free to jump in if you want.
Yeah, so first I want to give people the context for the cost of this war. In Iraq, we spent about $140 billion per year. Now, we were there a long time, so it wound up being a couple of $1 trillion, and there was also external costs involved too. But wait, 200 billion, how long are we planning to stay? This was supposed to be 3 or 4 weeks, and that's asking for more than a year's worth of war, theoretically. But it's possible that the war has gotten more expensive, or that we've just chosen to spend more money on this war, because Hassett says 12 billion we've spent already. Not by my calculations. Other outlets, based on other government officials that are actually in charge of the money, say that it costs $1 to $2 billion a year. And now the press is kind of landing, a day. And his press is kind of landing on 1 billion a day. Let's take that, the conservative number. Well, we've been at war for 3 weeks, so that's already $21 billion. You see how fast this is gonna go, and you see how long they wanna stay, right? So that's, at this rate, that's about, obviously 200 days of war. Now that's not a full year, but that's a hell of a lot longer than 3 or 4 weeks. So to give you a context. Now, in terms of Boebert and the rest, well, look, ironically, I kind of believe Boebert here, but not Chip Roy, and I'll explain the difference. So Boebert actually voted to release the Epstein files and took a lot of flack for it. She was one of only 4 Republicans that did that: Massey, Boebert, Nancy Mace, amazingly, and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Obviously, Greene's not there anymore, but so Massey and Boebert, since they've already taken a very, very tough vote that Trump was very mad about, have earned more credibility in being able, when they say, yes, I will actually vote against the president, right? Doesn't mean it's guaranteed, but at least she's done it before in a very hard vote. So I kind of believe that. Massey, I definitely believe. When you get to Chip Roy, enormously full of crap, and that is where most of Congress is. Whenever a politician says, well, we'll have to look at that, and it's in their own party, the leaders in their own party that's asking for it, they have voted against it approximately 0 times in my 30 years of covering politics, okay?
Yeah.
So that just means I'm going to pretend that I'm a fiscal conservative. I'm going to pretend that I was anti-war. But golly gee, there's nothing we can do about it. Now that we're in the middle of this war and our guys are getting killed, we're going to have to send in. No, wait, our guys are getting killed. Well, 13 already died. But as you'll see later in the show, we're going to send in ground troops. So a lot more will die, and then they'll ask for more money. Otherwise, you're against the troops. We've seen this movie 100 times, right? What's amazing is that political reporters in the national media apparently have never seen it. They were apparently born yesterday. Like, this is the exact same as script as Iraq, let alone 100 other things that have happened in terms of votes in Congress. But every time political reporters are like, what? Okay, Chip Roy is really concerned. No, he's not. It's totally fake, right? So now last category is Murkowski. And John, so sometimes people like Murkowski do have critical votes against Trump. She was one of the votes that saved Affordable Care Act. But overall, the game that the Murkowskis of the world play is, oh my God, I am such a moderate. That is why I'm on the fence, moderate. And they'll say it for months or however long it takes to get to the vote. Moderate, not sure, anti-war, blah, blah, blah. And at the end, there'll only be one headline that she voted yes on it, but she'll have gotten 20 headlines about how she might not vote yes and what an amazing, beautiful moderate she is. So that's the game that's being played here.
Yeah. So we should probably at least acknowledge Thomas Massey says it begs the question, how long do they plan to be there? Kind of what you were just saying, Cenk. What are the goals? Is this the first 200 billion? Does this turn into $1 trillion? Obviously, we already spent $1 trillion on our military budget. Then they're like, we're just gonna add 500 billion more. We weren't even in a war when they said that. You think they're only gonna add 200 billion for a massive war? It's madness. And before we move on to one other idea that's been floated on how to pay for this, I just wanna throw out a couple of extra things that are happening right now. As all of our attention is on this $200 billion thing, Donald Trump just invoked like wartime powers to ignore Congress to allow for $23 billion in arms sales to a bunch of Gulf states, all different sorts of arms and everything. Again, Congress, their involvement is not necessary, it's not desired. Even though both of the houses of Congress are controlled by his party, he's still flipping them the double bird, and he's just gonna go ahead with selling the weapons. And I'm sure a lot of people that he knows are gonna make a bunch of money from that additional arms sales that are now going to the Middle East. And in terms of like Chip Roy saying, we want answers on how long this is gonna last and everything. This is gonna be contradicted in 10 minutes, I'm sure. But Donald Trump just said on social media, he's considering winding down operations in Iran. Maybe we're done. They're literally sending more Marines there right now. But he's saying, maybe I'm done actually, I'm good. We've accomplished our goals. And he specifically says he doesn't care about what happens with the Strait of Hormuz. That's not for us to deal with. That's for all of the other countries that use it. Whatever, it's not anything that we really need to deal with. If he actually believes any of the things that he's saying, it's utter madness. More likely, it's a combination of madness or filtered through dementia and just massive, constant lying to the American people. Cenk, he used to say that thing, they're not coming for me, they're coming for you, and I'm in the way. Donald Trump isn't lying to the representatives and insulting the media. He's lying and insulting you. The media is just in the way. He doesn't give a damn about what even Republicans think about all this. And he has been super clear about that. He has said specifically when it comes to ground troops, and we'll get into more of that, it's not a polling thing, I'll do what I need to do. And so the idea that Chip Roy would even pretend to think that Donald Trump is gonna answer their questions and really explain himself and his thinking is absurd.
Yeah,
Any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm gonna get to what's actually gonna happen in a second, but first your point about Trump. Look, everybody knows that's been watching this show for any amount of time that I think that there are two different types of Trump voters. There's the guys who are still in the cult and self-identify as MAGA to this day. And those guys are what Limbaugh used to call the ditto heads, right? So Trump says something, I'm anti-war, yeah, anti-war. He says, I'm pro-war, like they didn't even notice, right? And then there's a whole heap of Trump voters, including a lot of independents that voted for him, that are like, no. Like, for example, right now among non-MAGA Trump voters, he's already down to 61% approval on this war. It should be lower, but he's lost about 40% of them already. That's a big number. That's plenty enough to swing any election, right? So for those guys, they're getting tired of the lies, right? And the lies are so obvious because, John, the critical part is seeing it for the first time. Once you see it once, you can't unsee it. Then you begin to see it over and over and over again. So for example, he says, to your point, I need $200 billion. This is the most important thing. Oh my God, we got to do it. We're sending in for 3 different aircraft carriers, which I'll tell you about in a second. And then he turns around and says, we're almost done. Well, which one is it? Later in the show, he tells the oil companies, I need you to drill, baby, drill, because your oil prices are so high. And then he turns around and says, don't worry, everybody, the war's gonna be over any second now and oil prices will go down. And the oil executives are like, well, which one is it? Because if oil prices are gonna go down, I don't wanna drill, right? And it's nonstop, it's over and over on every single issue. This, then this, then this, completely opposite. And now that a lot of those voters have seen that, they're like, oh my God, this guy won't stop lying. He's constantly saying the exact opposite of what he said just a minute ago, right? And yes, it's good to have you guys in the reality-based world now. And look, almost all the politicians are liars in different ways. So that's why it's not like I trust Boebert on everything else. But Boebert comes up with weirdo lies like I wrestled 3 guys and 2 bears at my bar with my bare hands and won. Okay, so don't even worry about what they're saying. Look at how they voted in the past, and that'll give you an indication of what they're gonna do in the future, right? And almost all of these politicians huff and puff, including the Democrats, by the way. And at the end of the day, they always find enough votes for 2 things. One is war, the other is Israel. So this thing is locked in. It's already over. The rest is just theater. So what I mean by that is, do I know for sure that the number is going to be $200 billion? No, it's possible they negotiate, etc. But if they're asking for 200, I'd be shocked if it was under 100. So over $100 billion, and maybe the entire 200, maybe even more by then. I've literally seen that happen half a dozen times, right?
Yeah.
And they'll get it, and all the huffing and puffing is meant to lie to all of you, whether you're Republican or Democrat, when it's already baked in. So here's a guarantee I'll make, John. Because Boebert, Massey, and maybe some others defect, they're gonna need Democratic votes in the House. And I absolutely, positively guarantee you that they will get just as many votes as they need. Because the Democrats are giant liars. They're gonna vote against Israel's war? There's no chance of that.
Yeah, well, and also I feel like the 200 is thrown out so that they can cut it to 170 and be like, oh, look, we're being responsible. When 1 billion extra is bullcrap. We shouldn't have spent the 30 that we already spent. We not only didn't vote for this, we voted against this. He is robbing us for every cent that he is wasting in murdering Iranian civilians. And I hate the idea that now it's about debating where the number should be. No, it's about where our military should be, not near Iran. We shouldn't be involved in literally any of this. And when I think about how much they fought over every bit of the Build Back Better bill. Oh, you can't put money into elder care. We don't have money for that. Meanwhile, they can spend on all of this. They had to cut all that Medicaid funding so that they could do Donald Trump's tax cut bill because we got to be fiscally responsible, but we can also jack up the military budget by $500 billion. We could also spend $200 extra billion setting fire to Iranian oil fields and everything. It is infuriating the way money is discussed and the double standard that we have in this country.
Yeah, John, I just want to add one quick thing to that. Because you mentioned the things Gavin Newsom listed, also Ro Khanna yesterday talking about, we could have 1,000 new trade schools. I mean, create millions of jobs in this country for that money. We can create free college education for everyone in the way that Bernie envisioned. Wouldn't that be amazing, free college? And we said, no free college for Americans. Nope, we're not gonna feed our hungry, we're not gonna help our sick, and we're not gonna give you any hope for the future. We're gonna all spend it all on war. And right now, the USS Lincoln is already in the Gulf, and they had USS Gerald Ford in there. But I don't know if you guys know this, it caught on fire, and we couldn't put it out for 30 hours. So they had to go and dock it in Crete and try to fix it in the middle of the war. Because when you do a war, weird things happen, and planes crash and ships catch on fire. So now they're sending in the Boxer from California, USS Boxer, and USS Tripoli from Japan. And tons of ground troops are on the way. All of this costs a ton of money. The F-35 that got hit yesterday cost $100 million. All of this is piling up. So it is a mountain of money, endless pit of money for war, but for actually helping Americans, golly gee, they just can't seem to find their wallet. Do you see how they betray us and how our representatives are not at all our representatives? They're the representatives of the donor class. They're literally sent into Congress to rob us of our money and funnel it over to their donors.
Yeah. Well, do you just want to briefly hear the other theory for how we could pay for this?
Sure.
Representative? Okay, let's mix things up. Republican Representative Scott Perry has a novel idea of how we could pay for the insane and growing amount of money we're spending on this war. Take a look.
I think most members, like I said, it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. We represent our districts, and we understand. We support I support the president. I support this action, but at the same time, we've got to pay for this. So how is this going to be dealt with? I would actually like to see Iran pay for this, whether it's 20 billion or 200 billion, whatever it is. Look, they've been at war with us for 47 years, and it's finally being ended by the president, which is awesome. But it comes at a cost, and they have resources. They have been siphoning those resources away from their population for those 4.5, 5 decades. And certainly they could pay that bill pretty quickly once things get up and running, and the Ayatollah is no longer in charge. So I think that's an option that we need to pursue as well.
I realize that I'm the dork who, watches movies and reads books about like elves and dwarves and stuff, but that gentleman right there lives in a goddamn fantasy land, because Donald Trump didn't start a war, he ended a war that's been going on for 47 years. And also, it's not the American taxpayer that's gonna end up paying trillions of dollars on this war. No, the Iranians are gonna do it. Yeah, once again, we're building the wall and Mexico is gonna pay for it. And they can say that with a straight face on the news, Cenk.
Yeah, all right, let me break it down, because this is hilarious. Really, even if you're like deep core MAGA, you believe that crap? Come on, please tell me you're not that ignorant, let's put it kindly. Okay, so after we invaded Afghanistan, did Afghanistan pay for the war? After we did Vietnam pay for the war? Okay, this is absurd. Nobody pays for a war against themselves. What kind of lunacy is that, right? I have to bother saying these things? Okay, but hold on, I'm gonna give you more about Iran in a second. But I wanted to also address this talking point about the 47 years. Guys, this is a talking point that came out in unison in politics and in media. The reason for that talking point is this war was obviously just for Israel, and we couldn't find an American interest. We'd already destroyed their nuclear facilities. On the first day, we killed their top 49 leaders, so the regime was gone in a sense, right? And we've taken out, as Trump keeps bragging about, their Navy, their Air Force, all their boats, etc. So why are we even there? That's why they had to come up with a talking point of, oh, remember Iran attacked America 47 years ago. And that's why we now have 47 years ago? We did a coup against Iran back in 1953. So what is that, 47, 26, that's 73 years ago. Did we start the war 73 years ago? This is insane. Math. And guys, when you see them all saying the same point, Ben Ferguson said it on Piers Morgan when I was debating him, but it doesn't matter. Go online and you will see all of the Israeli assets saying the same exact line about, oh, they've been at war with us for 47 years. That's an Israeli talking point given to the politicians and the media by their Israeli handlers to make it appear like America has an interest in this war. Okay, that's how this game is played. This brother just took it to an absurd level. But think through what he's saying. If there was any truth to it at all, it would be even worse. Because John, what he'd be saying then to what we would collectively be saying to Iran then is, you better fight us tooth and nail. Because if you lose this war, not only are we gonna get rid of the regime, and some of you like the regime, a lot of you hate the regime, so you're kind of mixed on that. Not only are we gonna drop bombs all over Iran and kill your children, which they're definitely against, and not only are we gonna hand your country over to a puppet dictator who's gonna report into Israel. But if you already didn't like that, or hated it with all of your might, after the war, we're gonna rob you blind and make you give us all of your money to pay for the war where we bombed your children. Well, then what are the Iranians going to do? They're gonna fight to the last man, right? So the only thing worse than this being a preposterous lie is if it was true.
Exactly. We live in such insane and insulting times.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. totally not true. But it does keep you updated on our live shows.